The massive doors of the Galactic Senate chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stepped through, her black diplomatic uniform sharp against the gleaming metal walls. Behind her, Commander Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Torres followed at a respectful distance. Kate walked straight toward the weapons scanner that stood like a silver archway before the main chamber. Every delegate had to pass through it. The machine could detect anything dangerous: energy weapons, poison, neural implants, even aggressive thoughts in some species. She stepped through without stopping. The scanner remained silent. No beeps, no flashing lights, no mechanical voice, asking her to remove weapons. Kate continued walking as if nothing had happened. Behind her, the Zephyrian delegate High Speaker Veltar watched with growing confusion. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought in his species. Around the chamber, other delegates began to notice something strange. The Craxi Battle Clan representative had entered earlier, his massive frame bristling with ceremonial weapons and energy shields. The scanner had catalogued each item before, allowing him through. The Ethereal Collective's floating representative had been scanned for thought weapons and mental intrusions. Even the peaceful Melodian Chorus delegate had submitted to checks for sonic disruptors hidden in her song organs. But the human had walked through as if the scanner did not exist. Kate took her place at the human delegation's curved desk. Earth's symbol glowed softly on the surface, a simple blue and green sphere that looked plain next to the complex emblems of other worlds. She activated her translation device and settled in for another long day of galactic politics. The session began with routine matters: trade disputes between the Outer Rim colonies, environmental restoration projects for war-damaged worlds, border adjustments in the neutral zone. Kate participated when needed, her voice calm and professional through the translator. But High Speaker Veltar could not focus on the discussions. His mind kept returning to what he had witnessed, or rather, what he had not witnessed. During a break in the proceedings, Veltar approached the human delegation. His tall, thin frame moved with the careful grace of his people. Kate looked up as his shadow fell across her desk. "Ambassador Sullivan," he said, his voice carrying the musical tone that marked all Zephyrian speech, "I must ask you something." "Of course, High Speaker, how can I help you?" "I watched you enter today. You passed through the weapons scanner." Kate nodded. "Yes, as we all do. But it did not scan you." The statement hung in the air between them. Kate felt Commander Morrison tense behind her. Dr. Torres looked up from her notes, her expression carefully neutral. "I'm not sure I understand," Kate said carefully. Veltar's 4 eyes focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. "The scanner examines all delegates. It searches for weapons, for dangerous items, for hostile intentions. But with you, it did nothing. Why?" Before Kate could answer, other delegates began to gather. News of the conversation had spread quickly through the chamber's communication networks. Soon representatives from a dozen species surrounded the human desk. War Chief Brutok of the Torvan Empire pushed forward, his scarred face showing suspicion. "The Zephyrian speaks truth. I have watched humans enter this chamber for many cycles. The scanners never activate for your species." "Most irregular," added Counselor Zixara, her melodious voice carrying disapproval. "All species must submit to security protocols. How do we know humans carry no weapons?" The crowd of delegates grew larger. Kate felt the weight of their attention pressing down on her. Dozens of alien eyes, in every color and configuration imaginable, stared at her with growing mistrust. "Perhaps," rumbled the deep voice of an ethereal node, "humans have found ways to fool our security systems." Murmurs spread through the gathering. Kate heard the word dangerous repeated in several languages. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Then a new voice cut through the noise. "Enough." Senate Archkeeper Morden approached through the crowd. The ancient crystalline being stood nearly 10 feet tall, his body composed of what looked like living diamond. He was older than most of the civilizations represented in the chamber. When he spoke, others listened. "The protocols exist for good reason," he said. his voice resonating from deep within his crystal structure. Some species cannot be trusted without deterrence. They require constant monitoring to prevent violence. He paused, his faceted head turning toward Kate. Others require no such measures. But why? Veltar pressed. What makes humans different? Morden's crystal body flickered with internal light, a sign of deep thought. The protocols were established long before most of you joined this body. They were created after careful study and consideration. That is not an answer, War Chief Brutok growled. Kate stood slowly. The chamber fell silent, waiting for her response. She realized that she did not have one. In all her years as Earth's representative, she had never questioned why humans were exempt from weapon screening. It was simply how things were. I don't know, she said finally. The admission sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. I've never been told why humans are treated differently. The honesty seemed to surprise some of the delegates, but it did not satisfy them. Then perhaps, said Prime Director Kethamol of the Nexarian hegemony, his mechanical voice cold and precise. It is time to find out. Commander Morrison stepped forward. Ambassador, perhaps we should adjourn for today. Kate shook her head. No. These are reasonable questions. If I don't know the answers, I should find them. She looked around at the assembled delegates. I give you my word that I will investigate this matter. When I have answers, I will share them with this body. And until then? Veltar asked. Until then, I ask for your patience and trust. War Chief Brutok snorted. Trust. Easy words from one who enters our chamber carrying unknown capabilities. But Archkeeper Morden raised one crystal in hand. The human speaks fairly. We will allow time for investigation. The crowd began to disperse, but Kate could feel their eyes on her as they returned to their seats. The trust that had taken decades to build was cracking. She had made a promise she was not sure she could keep. As the session resumed, Kate found herself unable to concentrate on the discussions. Her mind raced with questions she had never thought to ask. Why were humans different? What had happened in the past to create these special protocols? And most importantly, what would she discover when she started looking for answers? The session ended without further incident, but Kate knew this was only the beginning. As she left the chamber, walking once again through the silent weapons scanner, she felt the weight of a mystery that might shake the foundations of human-alien relations. Whatever the truth was, she would have to find it. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy might depend on it. Kate Sullivan sat in her private office aboard the diplomatic station, staring at the communication screen. She had spent 3 days trying to find answers about humanity's special status in the Senate. So far, she had found nothing but locked files and classified records. A soft chime announced an incoming call. Dr. Sam Mitchell's face appeared on the screen, his gray beard neatly trimmed and his eyes bright with curiosity. Behind him, Kate could see the cluttered office of Earth's foremost galactic historian. Kate, I got your message, he said. You're asking about the integration protocols? That's going back quite a ways. 127 years to be exact, Kate replied. When humanity first joined the Senate, I need to know what happened during our integration process. Sam leaned back in his chair, stroking his beard. That's a complicated story, and not all of it is in the public records. Before Kate could respond, another face appeared on the split screen. Captain Nicole Hayes looked tired, her short blonde hair slightly messy. She was calling from her office in Human Intelligence Services. Sorry I'm late, Nicole said. I've been digging through old files all morning. Kate, what you're asking? About? It's not just classified. Some of this stuff has been buried so deep I'm not sure anyone remembers it exists. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean buried? I mean, there are records that have been sealed by joint agreement between human and alien authorities, Nicole explained. Files that require authorization from both the human colonial government and the Senate Archkeeper to access. Sam nodded grimly. I've run into the same walls. But I have found some fragments, pieces of the puzzle. Tell me what you know. Kate. Sam activated his data pad, and documents began appearing on Kate's screen. Humanity's first contact with the Senate was in 2260. Admiral Jack Peters and diplomat Maria Gonzalez were chosen as our representatives. The initial meetings went well, but then something happened during what they called the integration protocols. What kind of something? Kate asked. That's where it gets fuzzy, Sam admitted. I found references to a containment breach during humanity's first Senate appearance. Whatever it was, it led to the emergency evacuation of 47,000 Senate personnel. Nicole pulled up another file. I found something called the Washington Incident. It happened 3 days before Peters and Gonzalez left for their first Senate meeting, but all the details are classified above my clearance level. Washington Incident? Kate repeated. That's all I can tell you. But here's the interesting part. Every species that was present during humanity's first Senate session voted to create the Human Exception Protocol, not just a majority vote. Unanimous. Kate stared at the screen. That's impossible. The Senate has never agreed unanimously on anything. Exactly, Sam said. Which means whatever they saw during those first meetings scared them enough to break their usual patterns of disagreement. Nicole leaned forward. I did find one more thing. A partial personnel record. There's a General Ben Carter, retired, who was present during the Washington Incident. He's still alive, living on Earth. Can you arrange a meeting? Kate asked. Already, working on it, Nicole replied. But Kate, there's something else. I found references to a classification level I've never seen before, something called Terminal Deterrent Level. The word sent another chill through Kate. What does that mean? I don't know, but whatever happened back then, it was serious enough to create an entirely new classification system. Sam cleared his throat. There's one more thing. I managed to find a partial video log from humanity's first Senate session. It's damaged, but it might show something useful. Let me see it, Kate said immediately. The screen flickered, then showed a grainy recording. Kate could see a massive chamber, similar to the current Senate building but older. Hundreds of alien delegates filled curved seating areas. At the center of the chamber stood two humans, a man in a military uniform and a woman in diplomatic dress. That's Admiral Peters and Maria Gonzalez, Sam said. This is just before they were supposed to undergo the standard weapons screening. Kate watched as the two humans approached a scanning device that looked different from the current models. It was larger, more complex, with multiple arms and sensors. Admiral Peters stepped forward first. The recording showed him placing his hands on scanning pads while the machine hummed to life. Lights began flashing across its surface. The alien delegates watched with routine interest. This was clearly a standard procedure. Then something changed. The scanner's humming grew louder. Warning lights began flashing. Alien delegates started looking concerned. Some began rising from their seats. Admiral Peters stepped back from the scanner, his face showing confusion. He said something to Maria, but the audio was too damaged to understand. Then the recording cut out. That's all I could recover, Sam said apologetically. The rest of the file is corrupted. Kate stared at the blank screen. What happened after that? According to the fragments I found, the session was suspended immediately, Sam replied. All human representatives were escorted to a secure facility for what the records call extended evaluation. How extended? Kate asked. Nicole checked her files. 3 weeks. Peters and Gonzalez were held for 3 weeks before being allowed to continue with the integration process. And after that, the Human Exception Protocol was created, Kate said, putting the pieces together. Right. But here's the strange part, Sam continued. After those 3 weeks, not only did the Senate create the exception, they also fast-tracked humanity's membership. We went from first contact to full Senate membership in less than 6 months. Most species take decades. Kate felt like she was looking at a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. So, something happened during that first weapons scan that alarmed the aliens so much they evacuated the chamber. But instead of rejecting humanity, they gave us special privileges. That's about the size of it, Nicole agreed. And whatever it was, both sides agreed to keep it secret. Kate made a decision. I need to speak with General Carter. Can you arrange a secure meeting? I'll try, Nicole said. But Kate, be prepared. If this information has been buried this deep for this long, there might be good reasons for it. Maybe, Kate replied. But the aliens are starting to ask questions. If I don't find answers soon, humanity's position in the Senate could be in jeopardy. After ending the call, Kate sat alone in her office, thinking about what she had learned. Humanity had some kind of secret that was dangerous enough to require special protocols, but valuable enough to earn rapid Senate membership. She looked out at the stars visible through her office window. Somewhere out there were the answers she needed. But finding them might reveal truths that would change everything. The next morning, Kate received a message from Nicole. General Carter had agreed to meet, but only on Earth, and only in person. He had also insisted that Dr. Alex Reed be present, the xenopsychologist who had studied humanity's integration process. As Kate prepared for the journey home, she wondered what she would discover. Whatever the truth was about humanity's special status, she had a feeling it would be more disturbing than she could imagine. The elevator descended deep beneath the Pentagon, far below the levels most people knew existed. Kate Sullivan watched the floor numbers count down past the basement levels into areas marked only with letters and symbols. Finally, the elevator stopped at sublevel 15. General Ben Carter was waiting when the doors opened. He was older than Kate had expected, his white hair thin and his face marked by deep lines. But his eyes were sharp and alert, and his handshake was firm. Ambassador Sullivan, he said, I've been expecting this conversation for a long time. Beside him stood a smaller man with thick glasses and nervous energy. Dr. Alex Reed, he introduced himself quickly. Xenopsychology. I was there during the early studies. They walked down a corridor lined with heavy security doors. Kate noticed that each door required multiple forms of identification to open. Whatever was stored down here was considered extremely sensitive. Before we begin, General Carter said, I need you to understand something. What we're about to discuss has been classified for over a century for very good reasons. Some knowledge is dangerous. The aliens are starting to ask questions. Kate replied, If I don't have answers, humanity could lose its place in the Senate. Carter nodded grimly. I figured this day would come eventually. He stopped at a door marked only with the number 1547. After scanning his hand, eye, and entering a long code, the door clicked open. Inside was a small conference room with no windows. The walls were lined with data storage units and monitors. Carter activated one of the screens and Kate saw what looked like a medical facility. This is where we conducted the Washington incident, Carter said. 3 days before Admiral Peters and Maria Gonzalez left for their first Senate meeting. Dr. Reed shifted nervously in his chair. We had captured several alien prisoners during the border wars. Nothing major, just some pirates and raiders from various species. We wanted to study them to understand how different alien minds worked. That seems reasonable, Kate said. It was, Carter agreed, until we realized what we had learned about ourselves. The screen changed to show a series of psychological profiles. Kate could see brain scans, behavior charts, and analysis reports for different species. Each alien species has what we call psychological barriers, Dr. Reed explained. Built-in mental blocks that prevent certain types of behavior. They're evolutionary adaptations that helped their species survive. Carter pulled up another chart. The Craxi, for example, they're warriors, but they have a genetic programming that prevents them from harming non-combatants. They literally cannot hurt someone who isn't fighting back. The Zephyrians have empathy blocks, Reed continued. If they cause pain to another, being they experience that pain themselves magnified, it makes them naturally peaceful. Kate studied the charts. What about other species? All of them have something, Carter said. The ethereals cannot lie due to their telepathic nature. The Torvan Empire has neural blocks that prevent genocide. They can fight wars. but they cannot completely destroy an enemy species. The screen changed again, showing a human brain scan. Kate immediately noticed the difference. Where the alien scans showed areas of restriction and limitation, the human brain showed none. Humans are different, Dr. Reed said quietly. We have no built-in psychological barriers, no genetic programming that prevents extreme behavior, no neural blocks against any type of action. Kate felt a cold sensation in her stomach. What does that mean exactly? Carter stood and walked to another screen. During the Washington incident, we conducted a series of tests. We wanted to understand how humans would react in extreme situations compared to our alien prisoners. The new screen showed a simulation facility. Kate could see human soldiers and alien prisoners in separate observation areas. We created scenarios designed to test psychological limits, Carter explained. Situations where subjects had to make difficult choices about the welfare of others. What kind of scenarios? Kate asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. Dr. Reed removed his glasses and cleaned them nervously. Hostage situations, medical triage with limited resources, survival scenarios where someone had to be sacrificed for the group to live. And what did you discover? The aliens all had limits, Carter said. Points where their psychology simply would not allow them to continue. The Craxi soldier could not harm a civilian prisoner even to save a dozen of his own people. The Zephyrian pirate became catatonic when forced to witness suffering he had caused. Kate watched the data scroll across the screen. Test after test showed the same pattern. Every alien species had boundaries they could not cross, lines their minds would not allow them to step over. But the humans? She asked. The humans had no limits, Dr. Reed said softly. Given the right circumstances, sufficient motivation and proper justification, human subjects were capable of any action necessary to achieve their goals. The room fell silent. Kate stared at the data, trying to process what she was hearing. You're saying humans are naturally more violent than other species? Not more violent, Carter corrected. More flexible. Other species are limited by their biology. Humans can choose to be peaceful or violent, compassionate or cruel, depending on what the situation requires. The alien observers were horrified, Dr. Reed added. They had never encountered a species with such psychological freedom. To them, humans appeared to be capable of unlimited evil. Kate understood now why the Senate session had been evacuated. When Admiral Peters went through the weapons scanner, it detected this, didn't it? Carter nodded. The scanners don't just look for physical weapons. They analyze brain patterns, psychological profiles, potential for violence. When Peters was scanned, the machine detected what it classified as unlimited destructive potential. But, we're not evil, Kate protested. No, we're not, Carter agreed. That's what took 3 weeks to figure out. The same psychological freedom that makes humans capable of terrible acts also makes them capable of incredible good. Humans can choose to sacrifice themselves for strangers, to show mercy to enemies, to forgive the unforgivable. Dr. Reed leaned forward. Other species do good things because their programming forces them to. Humans do good things by choice, and that makes it more meaningful. Kate began to understand the full picture. So the Senate created the weapon exception because armed humans would make every other species too terrified to think clearly, Carter finished. They realized that humanity's real weapon isn't something we carry, it's something we are. The screen changed one more time, showing the original Senate vote on the human exception protocol. Kate could see the tally. 847 votes in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. They voted unanimously because they understood something important, Carter explained. Humans don't need weapons to be dangerous, but more importantly, humans don't need programming to be good. Kate sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications. How many people know about this? Very few, Carter replied. And it needs to stay that way. Some knowledge is too dangerous to share widely. But the aliens in the Senate know. The older species do. The ones who were there during integration. But younger species, newer members, they only know the protocols exist. They don't know why. Kate thought about High Speaker Veltar and the other delegates who had questioned her. Some of them are starting to demand answers. That's what we were afraid of, Dr. Reed said. If the newer species learn the truth without proper context, they might see humans as a threat to be eliminated, rather than allies to be trusted. Carter activated another screen showing current Senate membership. 43 species have joined since humanity's integration. Most of them don't know why humans are treated differently. Kate realized the magnitude of the problem. And if they find out the wrong way, it could mean war, Carter said bluntly, or at minimum humanity's expulsion from the Senate. The meeting continued for several more hours. Kate learned about the careful diplomatic work that had gone into maintaining humanity's position over the decades. She discovered that several human leaders had always known the truth and had worked to manage the secret. As Kate prepared to leave, Dr. Reed handed her a secure data pad. This contains everything we've discussed today, plus additional analysis. But Ambassador, be very careful who you share this with. What do you think I should do? Kate asked. Carter considered the question carefully. The truth is coming out, one way or another. Better that it comes from you in the right context than from someone who might use it to hurt humanity. As Kate rode the elevator back to the surface, she thought about the burden she now carried. Humanity's greatest strength was also their greatest vulnerability. Their freedom to choose between good and evil made them both the most dangerous and most trustworthy species in the galaxy. The question now was how to help the other species understand that difference before fear and misunderstanding destroyed everything humanity had built. Kate Sullivan returned to the Senate station with her mind full of disturbing knowledge. She knew the truth about humanity's special status, but now she had to decide what to do with that information. The wrong move could destroy human-alien relations forever. She decided to start by speaking privately with individual Senate members. If she could understand their perspectives, maybe she could find a way to address their concerns without revealing the full truth. Her first meeting was with Counselor Zixara of the Melodian Chorus. The Melodian's office was filled with crystal formations that resonated with soft, harmonious sounds. Zixara herself looked like a living song. Her translucent body pulsed with colors that matched the music around them. Ambassador Sullivan, Zixara said, her voice creating perfect harmonies with itself. I am pleased you wish to speak privately. The questions raised in the chamber have caused discord among my people. Kate sat carefully in the chair designed for human visitors. I wanted to understand your concerns better. It is simple, Zixara replied. All species follow the same security protocols. Why should humans be different? What makes you so special that you alone can enter the Senate without weapons screening? Kate chose her words carefully. What if I told you that humans are screened, just not in the way you might expect? The Melodian's colors shifted to curious blues and purples. I do not understand. The weapon scanners do examine humans, Kate explained. They just don't find anything that needs to be removed. But that is impossible. Every species carries some form of defensive capability. It is basic survival instinct. Kate leaned forward. What if a species didn't need to carry weapons because they were already sufficiently protected? Zixara's colors changed to worried reds. You speak in riddles, Ambassador, but your words suggest something troubling. Before Kate could respond, Zixara continued. My people have always found humans unsettling. You sing no songs, yet you create harmony. You show no colors, yet you display deep emotions. You are silent in ways we cannot understand. Kate left that meeting with more questions than answers. Her next appointment was with War Chief Brutok of the Torvan Empire. Brutok's office was the opposite of Zixara's peaceful space. The walls were covered with weapons and battle trophies. The large, scarred alien sat behind a desk made from the hull of an enemy ship. Human, he growled as Kate entered. You have caused much discussion among my warriors. Kate took a seat across from the intimidating figure. I'm trying to understand why the weapon protocols concern you. Brutok's laugh was more like a roar. Concern? No, human. My warriors are curious. In battle, we know our enemies by their weapons, but humans are a mystery. How so? The war chief leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming. In the border wars, before your people joined the Senate, we faced human soldiers in combat. They fought like no species we had ever encountered. Kate felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean? Most species fight within patterns, biological limits that define how they can battle. But humans, Brutok shook his massive head. Humans fought without limits. They would sacrifice themselves for strategic advantage. They would show mercy to enemies who had shown them none. They would commit acts of both incredible cruelty and impossible compassion, sometimes in the same battle. The alien warrior stood and walked to his collection of weapons. After the wars ended, my people studied human combat footage for years. We concluded that humans are the apex predators of the galaxy. That seems like an overstatement, Kate said carefully. Brutok turned back to her, his expression serious. Is it? Tell me, human, what could stop your species if you decided to conquer the galaxy? Kate opened her mouth to answer, then realized she could not think of a good response. Exactly, Brutok said. That is why the weapon protocols exist. Not to protect you, but to protect us from the fear of what you might become. Her third meeting was with Ethereal Node 7 Alpha, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix. The Ethereal's office was a chamber filled with floating screens and data streams. Ambassador, the node's voice echoed from speakers throughout the room. Your species continues to be a source of fascinating study for our collective. In what way? Kate asked. Humans possess something we have never encountered. Complete psychological freedom. You can choose to be anything, do anything, become anything. It is both terrifying and wonderful. Kate realized the Ethereals already knew the truth. How long have you understood this about us? Since your integration. We are a collective consciousness. We share all thoughts and memories. Deception is impossible for us, but humans can lie even to themselves. It is a capability we find both disturbing and admirable. Disturbing? A being that can deceive itself can justify any action. But admirable because it means humans can grow beyond their nature. They can become better than what they are. The node paused, its lights flickering thoughtfully. Your species serves an important function in the Senate. You are our conscience, and I don't understand. Other species act within their programming. We do good because we must, evil because we cannot help it. But humans choose. And because you choose, your actions have moral weight that ours lack. Kate left that meeting feeling overwhelmed. The older species clearly understood humanity's nature and had made peace with it. But what about the newer members? Her fears were confirmed when she met with Prime Director Kethmal of the Nexarian hegemony. The mechanical being's office was sterile and efficient, filled with computing equipment and data analysis tools. Ambassador Sullivan, Kethmal said, his synthetic voice cold and precise. I have been analyzing the human exception protocols since our last Senate session, and what have you concluded? That they represent a dangerous precedent. Either all species should be subject to the same security measures, or species that require special protocols should not be permitted in the Senate. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. That seems rather extreme. Extreme situations require extreme solutions, Kethmal replied. I have been consulting with other newer Senate members. Many share my concerns about human privileges. The mechanical being activated a holographic display showing Senate voting patterns. Humans have been involved in 47% of all major Senate decisions over the past 50 years. Yet you represent less than 3% of galactic population. This suggests disproportionate influence, or that human perspectives are valued by other species, Kate countered. Perhaps. Or perhaps other species fear to oppose you. Kethmal's optical sensors focused on Kate with uncomfortable intensity. My analysis suggests that humans are treated with unusual deference by older Senate members. This pattern indicates either corruption or coercion. Kate realized that the Nexarians had stumbled close to the truth without understanding it. Their mechanical logic was leading them to dangerous conclusions. Prime Director, I assure you that humans have never threatened or coerced anyone in the Senate. Threats are not always spoken, Ambassador. Sometimes they are simply implied by one's nature. Over the following days, Kate held similar meetings with a dozen other species. A clear pattern emerged. The older species, those who had been present during humanity's integration, showed a complex mix of respect, wariness, and acceptance. They understood what humans were and had made their peace with it. But the newer species saw only inequality and special treatment. Led by the Nexarians, they were beginning to organize opposition to humanity's special status. Kate met with Commander Morrison and Dr. Torres in her private office to discuss what she had learned. "It's worse than we thought," she told them. "The newer species don't understand why humans are treated differently, and they're starting to see it as unfair privilege." Morrison frowned. "How many species are we talking about?" Kate consulted her notes. 43 species have joined the Senate since human integration. The Nexarians have contacted at least 20 of them about challenging our status. "What exactly are they proposing?" Torres asked. "Either full weapons screening for humans or removal from the Senate entirely." The room fell silent as they absorbed the implications. "Could we pass a full weapons screening?" Morrison asked. Kate thought about what she had learned in Washington. "Not without revealing why we're different. And once that information becomes public knowledge, it could cause panic," Torres finished. "Or worse, a preemptive strike against humanity." Kate nodded grimly. "Some species might decide that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist." They spent the rest of the evening discussing options, but every path seemed to lead to disaster. Reveal the truth and risk war. Hide the truth and face expulsion from the Senate. Either way, humanity's carefully built position in the galactic community was in jeopardy. The next morning, Kate received a formal communication from Prime Director Kethmal. The Nexarians were calling for a Senate vote on the Human Exception Protocol. They wanted a full review of humanity's special status, including testimony from species that had been present during the original integration. Kate realized that her time was running out. Soon the truth would come out whether she wanted it to, or not. The question was whether she could control how that information was revealed and interpreted. The future of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and Kate was... The Senate chamber buzzed with tension as delegates took their seats for the emergency session. Kate Sullivan could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon her as she entered through the weapons scanner that once again remained silent. Today, that silence felt ominous rather than routine. Prime Director Kethamal had called for a formal review of the Human Exception Protocol. The motion had gained support from 28 newer species who demanded answers about humanity's special treatment. Kate knew this was the moment she had been dreading. The truth would come out one way or another. Archkeeper Morden called the session to order, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "We are gathered to address concerns raised about protocols established during humanity's integration over 1 century ago." Prime Director Kethmal rose from his seat, his mechanical form gleaming under the chamber's lights. "Honored Archkeeper, the Nexarian hegemony formally requests a complete review of all special protocols granted to the human species." Murmurs swept through the chamber. Kate could see delegates whispering among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of alien languages. "The request is noted," Morden replied. "What specific concerns does the Nexarian delegation wish to address?" Kethamal activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. "For 127 years, humans have been exempt from standard security protocols. This exemption was granted without public explanation and has never been reviewed." The display showed statistics comparing human treatment to other species. Kate had to admit the data looked damning when presented without context. "Furthermore," Kethmal continued, "humans have wielded disproportionate influence in Senate decisions despite representing a small fraction of galactic population. This suggests either corruption or coercion." War Chief Brutok stood up abruptly. "The Nexarian speaks of matters beyond his understanding." "Then enlighten us, War Chief," Kethamal replied smoothly. "Explain why humans deserve special treatment that no other species receives." Brutok's scarred face showed frustration. Kate realized that the Torvan leader wanted to defend humanity but could not reveal the classified information he possessed. High Speaker Veltar also rose. The Zephyrian Collective supports the Nixarian request. We demand transparency in all Senate protocols. More voices joined the chorus of newer species demanding answers. Kate could see the chamber dividing along clear lines. Older species who knew the truth remaining silent. Newer species demanding explanations. Archkeeper Morden raised one crystalline hand for silence. The protocols were established after extensive study and consideration. They have served the Senate well for over a century. That is not an answer, Kethmal said firmly. We demand to know what makes humans so special that they alone are exempt from security measures. Kate realized she could remain silent no longer. She stood slowly, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. I will answer your questions, she said clearly. The chamber fell silent. Even Archkeeper Morden looked surprised by her statement. Ambassador, Morden said carefully, perhaps private consultation would be appropriate before... No. Kate interrupted. The Nixarians are right. These questions deserve honest answers. She walked to the center of the chamber, standing beneath the holographic displays. Hundreds of alien faces watched her with intense curiosity. You want to know why humans are treated differently? I will tell you. But first, let me ask you all a question. What is the most dangerous weapon in this chamber? Delegates looked around, confused. Some pointed to the ceremonial weapons carried by various species. Others suggested defensive technologies or biological adaptations. Kate shook her head. You are all wrong. The most dangerous weapon in this chamber is me, and every other human who has ever stood here. The statement sent shocked murmurs throughout the gathering. Kethamal's optical sensors focused on Kate with renewed intensity. Explain, he demanded. Kate took a deep breath. Every species represented here has evolved with psychological barriers, mental limitations that prevent certain types of behavior. The Craxi cannot harm non-combatants. The Zephyrians feel the pain they inflict on others. The Ethereals cannot lie. These barriers helped your species survive and develop civilized societies. She paused, looking around at the alien faces surrounding her. Humans have no such barriers. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Some delegates rose from their seats, in alarm. Kate could see fear spreading through the newer species like wildfire. Silence. Morden's voice boomed through the chamber. Let the human continue. Kate waited for quiet before continuing. Given sufficient motivation and justification, humans are psychologically capable of any action necessary to achieve their goals. We have no built-in programming that prevents us from lying, killing, or even committing genocide. The fear in the chamber was now palpable. Several security guards had moved closer to Kate, though she noticed they seemed uncertain about what to do. However, Kate continued, raising her voice above the growing panic, the same psychological freedom that makes humans capable of terrible evil also makes us capable of incredible good. She activated her own display, showing historical records from human space. Humans have sacrificed their lives for complete strangers. We have shown mercy to enemies who showed us none. We have forgiven the unforgivable and protected the innocent at great cost to ourselves. The images showed human soldiers sharing food with enemy prisoners, doctors treating patients from hostile species, and diplomats negotiating peace even when war would have been more profitable. Other species do good things because their programming forces them to, Kate explained. Humans do good things by choice, and that makes our compassion more meaningful than programmed behavior. Prime Director Kethamal's mechanical voice cut through the discussion. You admit that humans are inherently dangerous. Why should we trust you? Kate turned to face him directly. Because trust has to be earned, not programmed. A Zephyrian cannot hurt you because biology prevents it. A human chooses not to hurt you because it is the right thing to do. But you could choose differently, another delegate called out. Yes, Kate admitted. And that possibility is exactly why the weapon protocols exist. The Senate's founders understood that humanity's real weapon is not something we carry. It is something we are. Armed humans would make every other species too afraid to think clearly. Archkeeper Morden stepped forward. The human speaks truth. The protocols were not created to give humanity special privileges, but to acknowledge a unique situation. Humans do not need weapons to be dangerous, but more importantly, they do not need programming to be trustworthy. War Chief Brutok rose again. In battle, I have seen humans commit acts of both incredible cruelty and impossible mercy, sometimes within the same engagement. They are the only species that can truly choose between good and evil. Counselor Zixara's voice added its musical harmonies to the discussion. That choice gives moral weight to human actions that our programmed responses lack. When a human shows compassion, it means something different than when we do. But not all delegates were convinced. A representative from the Vorthon Collective stood up. If humans are so dangerous, why are they allowed in the Senate at all? Kate had been expecting this question. Because the galaxy needs species that can make hard choices. When faced with situations that have no good answers, programmed species become paralyzed by their limitations. Humans can find solutions that others cannot even consider. She showed another display, this one documenting Senate decisions where human input had been crucial. 47% of major Senate decisions have involved human perspectives, not because we have too much power, but because we can see options that programmed thinking cannot reach. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for human expulsion, others for maintaining the current system. Kate answered every question as honestly as she could, knowing that her words would determine humanity's future in the galactic community. Finally, Archkeeper Morden called for order. The human has been forthright in her explanations. The chamber will now consider what actions to take. As delegates huddled in their species groups for discussion, Kate sat down heavily. She had revealed humanity's greatest secret to the entire Senate. Whether that would save them or doom them remained to be seen. Commander Morrison approached her quietly. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. Kate looked around at the alien faces still deep in discussion. Some showed fear, others curiosity, still others a grudging respect. The truth was out now, for better or worse. All she could do was wait for the Senate's judgment on whether humanity deserved to remain among the stars, or if they were too dangerous to be trusted with galactic citizenship. The Senate chamber remained tense for 3 days after Kate's revelation. Delegates huddled in their species groups, debating humanity's fate in dozens of alien languages. Kate could only wait and watch as her words spread throughout the galactic community. On the 4th day, Archkeeper Morden called another emergency session. As Kate entered the chamber, she noticed additional security measures. More guards were present, and several species had requested permission to observe remotely, rather than attend in person. The Senate has reached a decision regarding the human question, Morden announced, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. However, given the unprecedented nature of this situation, we have decided that further evaluation is required. Kate felt her stomach drop. What kind of evaluation? Prime Director Kethmal rose from his seat. The Nexarian hegemony has proposed a capability assessment. Humanity claims to possess unique psychological freedom that makes you both dangerous and trustworthy. We wish to test this claim. Test it how? Kate asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. A new figure entered the chamber, one Kate had never seen before. The being was tall and thin, covered in flowing robes that seemed to be made of starlight itself. When it spoke, its voice echoed with authority that made even Archkeeper Morden defer. I am Arbiter Supreme Quindal, the figure announced. I have been summoned to oversee this assessment. It will determine whether humanity's continued Senate membership serves the greater good of galactic civilization. Kate realized this was more serious than she had thought. Arbiter Supremes were called in only for the most critical decisions affecting the entire galaxy. What does the assessment involve? Commander Morrison asked from his position behind Kate. Quindal gestured, and holographic displays filled the chamber. Human representatives will face a series of scenarios designed to test their decision-making under extreme circumstances. These tests will be observed by xenopsychologists from every major species. The display showed what looked like sophisticated simulation chambers. Kate could see complex environments with multiple variables and realistic holographic characters. The scenarios will present situations where programmed responses would lead to suboptimal outcomes, Quindell continued. We will observe whether humans truly possess the psychological flexibility they claim. War Chief Brutok stood up. This is unnecessary. The Torvan Empire has observed human capabilities in actual combat situations. Combat is only one aspect of psychological freedom, Kethmal countered. We require comprehensive testing under controlled conditions. Arbiter Supreme Quindell raised one robed arm for silence. The assessment has been approved by the Senate Core Council. Humanity may choose 3 representatives to undergo evaluation. The results will determine your species' future in this body. Kate felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. When does this assessment take place? Tomorrow, Quindell replied. You have until then to select your representatives and prepare for the trials. That evening, Kate met with Commander Morrison and Dr. Torres in her private office. They were joined by Captain Tony Martinez, who had flown in from Earth specifically for this crisis. We need to choose carefully, Kate said. These tests will determine humanity's future in the Senate. What kind of scenarios are we likely to face? Martinez asked. He was a combat veteran with experience in both military and diplomatic situations. Torres consulted the limited information they had been given. Based on what the Arbiter said, they'll probably test moral flexibility, situations where rigid thinking leads to bad outcomes. Morrison nodded grimly. They want to see if we can make hard choices that other species cannot. Kate made her decision. Tony, I want you to handle any military or security scenarios. Your combat experience will be valuable. Dr. Torres, you're our xenobiologist. You understand alien psychology better than anyone. If they present medical or scientific dilemmas, you're our best choice. What about you? Torres asked. I'll take the diplomatic scenarios. Whatever they throw at us, we need to show that humans can make difficult decisions while maintaining our moral compass. The next morning, the 3 humans were escorted to a special facility beneath the Senate building. The testing chambers were more sophisticated than anything Kate had ever seen. Each room could generate completely realistic environments and populate them with holographic characters, indistinguishable from real people. Observers from dozens of species watched through reinforced windows. Kate could see xenopsychologists taking notes and monitoring equipment that analyzed everything from brain patterns to stress hormones. Captain Martinez went first. His scenario was a hostage situation on a space station. Terrorists had taken civilian captives from multiple species and were threatening to kill them unless their demands were met. The catch was that meeting the demands would lead to even greater loss of life in the long term. Kate watched as Martinez analyzed the situation. Unlike the alien observers, who seemed to be looking for a solution that would save everyone, Martinez immediately began calculating acceptable losses. He identified which hostages were most valuable, which could be sacrificed if necessary, and which actions would minimize overall casualties. The alien observers seemed disturbed by his cold analysis, but Kate could see the logic. Martinez developed a plan that would result in the death of 3 hostages, but save hundreds of others who would die if the terrorists' demands were met. When the simulation ended, the alien psychologists were buzzing with discussion. Kate heard phrases like ruthless calculation and absence of emotional barriers in several languages. Dr. Torres faced a medical scenario. A plague was spreading through a colony world, and she had limited resources to develop a cure. The simulation presented her with test subjects from different species, each with varying chances of survival and different potential contributions to finding a treatment, where other species might have treated all patients equally or focused on saving the most. Lives immediately, Torres made choices that no programmed response could handle. She deliberately allowed some patients to die in order to gather data that would save millions more. She used test subjects in ways that other species would consider morally questionable but scientifically necessary. The observers looked even more disturbed by Torres' decisions than they had by Martinez's. Kate could see them struggling to understand how someone could make such cold calculations while clearly caring about the people affected. Finally, it was Kate's turn. Her scenario was the most complex yet. A diplomatic crisis where she had to choose between human interests and galactic stability. A human colony was under attack, but saving it would require actions that could start a galactic war. Kate analyzed the situation from every angle. She considered solutions that other species would never think of: deception, manipulation, even temporary alliances with enemies. In the end, she chose to sacrifice the colony to prevent a war that would kill billions. But she did not just abandon the colonists. Instead, she developed a complex plan that would make their sacrifice meaningful, while secretly ensuring that the attackers would face consequences later. It was the kind of long-term strategic thinking that required both ruthless calculation and deep moral commitment. When all three scenarios were complete, the human representatives were brought together in a debriefing room. They could see the alien observers through the windows engaged in intense discussions. "How do you think we did?" Martinez asked. Kate was not sure. "We showed them what they wanted to see, that humans can make choices other species cannot. Whether they see that as a good thing or a threat remains to be determined." Dr. Torres looked at the monitoring equipment still attached to her arms. "I've never felt so analyzed in my life. They were measuring everything. Stress responses, moral reasoning, patterns, even micro-expressions." Hours passed before Arbiter Supreme Quindal entered their room. The starlight robe seemed dimmer than before, as if the assessment had drained energy from the ancient being. "The evaluation is complete," Quindal announced. "The results are unprecedented." Kate felt her pulse quicken. "What did you discover?" "That humanity's claims are accurate but incomplete. You do indeed possess psychological freedom that other species lack, but you also demonstrated something else: the ability to choose restraint despite having unlimited options." The Arbiter gestured to the monitoring displays. "Each of you faced scenarios where unlimited violence or cruelty would have been the easiest solution, yet each of you chose more difficult paths that balanced practical needs with moral considerations." Kate began to hope that maybe humanity had passed the test. "However," Quindal continued, "the assessment has also revealed why other species fear you. Your capacity for both creation and destruction is truly unlimited. In the wrong hands, or under extreme pressure, humans could pose an existential threat to galactic civilization." The hope Kate had felt began to fade. "Does that mean—" "It means the Senate must make a choice. Do we trust humanity's demonstrated commitment to moral behavior, or do we eliminate the risk you represent?" As they were escorted back to the Senate chamber, Kate realized that humanity's fate still hung in the balance. They had proven they were everything she had claimed, both dangerous and trustworthy. Now the